In the constant pursuit of exposure and mainstream popularity, difficulty and video games have become more and more estranged from one another. Which is a shame, because from the very beginning, video games were forged in the fires of challenge, of sweaty, passionate honor, god damn it. We played and competed the likes of Mega Man and Battletoads not because of some story-based reason or for an achievement pop, but because we knew we had to. And while the industry has moved away from that a little bit, gamers still can't resist a good test of their mettle when it comes to the most egregious concoctions of challenging code. And yeah, you may get knocked back, you may feel yourself questioning your very existence, but the feeling of making it through and adding yet another notch to your belt, even when you thought you couldn't do it, well, there's nothing like it. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 7 really difficult video games you just couldn't handle. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to stay notified. Ding, ding, done. Number 7. Hotline Miami 2, wrong number. There are few games that manage to burrow their way into your primal cortex to the point where you start thinking of strategies even when you're not in front of a screen, but you'll need to become one with Hotline Miami's very code to keep up with its later stages. Continuing where the original left off in terms of difficulty, and thereby assuming that going into the sequel you're well versed in the ways of combining melee weapons with firearms to massacre hundreds of dudes, there's no let up whatsoever once you get going. You'll need to literally pick up and play, goading charging AI characters, raining down fire with on-the-fly tactics and improvisation. You can grab all guns dropped, throw melee weapons to knock foes down, and grab human shields to soak up one shot. And it's this dynamic rollout of experimentation and your own intuition that keeps Hotline Miami so imminently replayable and so punishing across a sizable 15+ hour runtime. Number 6. N++. Speaking of things being charming but with brutal cores popping them up, N++ takes the original's minimalistic aesthetic and ups the ante in terms of dodging projectiles, crazier obstacles, and getting to certain spots in the level to trigger the endpoint. It all boils down to an exquisitely perfect physics model governing motion and momentum. Your tiny stick figure ninja moves perfectly every single time, which means it's always your fault when you completely mess up. Like its predecessor, the opening smattering of levels in N++ semi-lightly eases you in. It's doable, learnable, exciting, and somewhat unique, but what comes later will test your reflexes, memorization, and mental fortitude as you're tasked with surviving some of the most brutal bullet hell-based levels seen in gaming thus far. Number 5. Volgarr the Viking. I'll leave it up to the comments whether sporadic, read, almost non-existent checkpointing is a lazy way to make a game incredibly hard. But Volgarr the Viking revels in the pendulum swing of slicing through enemies like there's no tomorrow before dying and going back a good 20 minutes of in-game time. You constantly feel your inhibitions betray logic as the feeling of I'm doing great always leads you to charge headlong into another enemy, only for a wayward projectile or environmental pitfall you barely saw coming in to ruin a run. And that's all it takes. A couple of hits max and you're way back to the beginning of an entire section. If the words ghosts and goblins brings on cold sweats and spine shivers, maybe give this one a miss. Or join Volgarr if you want to look your fear right between the eyes. Number 4. Rogue Legacy. Now for a 2D side-scroller completely soaked in charm, so much that it almost negates any annoyances you'll have when coming up against its screen-filling boss battles. Playing as a bloodline of knights, every time you die, it's your inheritor who takes up their parents' quest. This means your abilities change every single time you die, like a dice roll in regards to the character's buffs and which weapons trickle down. You can strengthen your family to get different classes and thereby different abilities, but the basics are always the same. You're a knight going into a procedurally generated castle to thwart evil and look for loot. You'll die thousands of times and form quite the wall display of fallen heroes, but every time you learn from the mistakes of the past, carry through some equipment for a better chance, and get that little bit further every single time. Oh, and if you unlock the chronically flatulent knight, pick them. If nothing else, you'll get one hell of a speed boost. Number 3. 1001 Spikes. Okay, video games, now you're just being ridiculous. Developers Nicalis clearly took one look at Super Meat Boy and Dark Souls, realised how much this masochistic streak in gaming had taken hold, and made something laser focused on that precise demographic. The result is 1001 Spikes, a platformer where every level is littered with instant death bringing blades of pure annoyance. It's not only that the spikes pulsate at regular intervals, oh no. You've also got leaping enemies, projectile darts crossing the room, falling blocks, boulders to dodge, and, well, you get the idea. There's a lot of stuff trying to kill you. Existing entirely as a throwback to the 8-bit era, and everything that was so primitively designed when it came to difficulty across the industry, 1001 Spikes is only for those who like their gaming to be reminiscent of being punched in the face. Number 2. Hyper Light Drifter. Despite being a lovingly stylish ode to old school 2D role-playing games and one of the best reviewed titles of 2016, Hyper Light Drifter became known for one thing above all else: being unbelievably punishing. It was so difficult, in fact, that the developers ended up releasing the invincibility patch, which also graciously added in features like invincibility frames after dashing and a more generous health system. You know, the things that you usually expect to see in even the most punishing games on the market. Also, as a plus, it'll be hitting Nintendo Switch later in this year if you wanted to bring the challenge on the go and scare everyone on your commute to school or work. Seriously though, please don't do that, because you'll freak everyone out. Number 1. Fury. Playing like a meld of Hotline Miami's soundscape, Devil May Cry's lightning-fast combos, and the occasional bullet hell dual joystick shooter segment, the sheer amount of influences and tropes Fury manages to encapsulate is truly staggering. What's so remarkable though is how much Fury makes no bones about its learning curve being a brick wall. Either get good or give up, there's no middle ground here. The game's progression is tied to a series of boss battles, interspersed only with lighter segments of walking around some downright gorgeous environments. And you'll need these breathers, believe me, because each battle is a true test of might. Boss attacks come at you at split-second intervals, and while a tiny window could present itself to wade in and win the fight, you'll still need to navigate a number of hazardous environmental cues first. No thanks. So that's our list. Let me know down in the comments below whether these games gave you as much trouble as they did me. And while you're there, please give us a like, share, and a subscribe, and head over to whatculture.com for more lit fire content like this. As always, I've been Josh, you've been watching What Culture Gaming, and I'll see you soon.